Hey, hi
Hello.
Pixey, hi everyone. Um, my name is Buzz. I work for BBC Introducing and the network producer over there, and I'm very gassed to have been asked to interview brilliant Pixey for this year's AIM Future Independence panel, because you're pretty much one of my absolute favourite artists currently
Oh.
making music. You know that. um, been supporting you from back when I worked on Radio One. So yeah, this is such an honour. And
Likewise.
yeah, shall we get straight into the questions for everyone?
Yeah, should we just
Yeah,
jump in?
yeah, let's do it. So can you tell everyone why you decided to pursue a career as a musician?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a big question, I think.
Yeah.
It's not like it's funny, it's not something that I always thought I could do. It was something that kind of it was that there was a catalyst moment that kind of threw me into beginning to write and produce. And I think I was quite late to the I guess to the party with the whole career thing. I'd always loved music, listened to music, played the odd little bit piano, but I was never thought I could be anything more than just, a little hobby that I used to do after school. And I guess what started it was I got really, I got really sick when I was 21 or 20, my really early 20s.
All right.
And it was this like systemic viral infection that had me hospitalized for in total about a month.
Oh
And when I
wow.
came out of the hospital, I remember just thinking it was a wake up call of like, you know, I didn't want to waste any more time, or I didn't want to not believe in myself anymore, and I just sort of took a leap into writing and production as I was getting better, and for some reason it just it just took off, which now I'm here.
The pop star dreams started off well. That's a really positive thing that you took away from something so distressing. So I really admire that.
Thank you
Um,
so much.
yeah. Obviously, you're from Liverpool, in case people hadn't got from the accent. Um, Such an amazing, vibrant city, and obviously renowned for its musical heritage. Can you tell me a little bit about what your experience was like as an emerging artist in the city?
It's funny because like I never really when I first started writing, I never really thought about what it meant to be like to come up in your own city. I always thought, oh, you have to go to London, everything's in London or LA or like
Yeah,
these big cities. Which don't get me wrong, a lot of stuff is based in London. I'm here right now in London, but
yeah,
but it was so exciting because I felt like the community, obviously, in Liverpool, we're famous for having like big bands coming from the city, namely the Beatles, which is kind of shoved down your throat a bit growing up. Um, but it was like it was until you experience being an artist in Liverpool, like there's nothing really quite like it. I just find the community is like it's never felt competitive. Everybody supports each other. Even now, I've been in the industry for like I think like 7 years or something, and I still go to see all the other bands who are coming up or who've been around for a while. Everyone still goes to each other's shows. Everyone really bigs you up. I mean, when I played Glastonbury this year, I think half of Liverpool was in the audience. They really championed music, and without putting my music on BBC Introducing Merseyside, without having that community around my music, I honestly don't know if I would have developed the same sonic identity or whether I'd have like the same trajectory. I don't if I hadn't have been in Liverpool when I was starting out. So that's really cool for
yeah,
me. I think it's really important.
yeah. Just tapping into a community that is obviously new music fans. Yeah,
Yeah, 100%.
definitely.
The crowds are great
Um,
as well. I always find in Liverpool too. I always think they're
Yeah.
like really supportive and they got you
What
back.
is what are some of your favourite grassroots venues in the city?
Do you know, I used to love, there was one on Duke Street that was called Sound, and it was like a little basement. It always felt like someone's passion project, but that closed down. I was really upset that it closed down. That
Oh,
that was one of my favourites. And then you'll often find me catching, a few acts in the Jacaranda
yeah,
basement. That's like a really awesome.
legendary.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of another. There's so many, and there's a few new places popping up as well now, which is great. But I'd definitely say I feel like I'm missing a glaring one that I'm going to kick myself later for not remembering. Oh, the Casimir Stock Room's a great one. That's like I
Yeah.
love that venue. I don't know why I love it so much. It's just I've never seen a gig there that I've not enjoyed, and I find like it's like a sort of sweaty little box, but it's really great.
The sticky dance floors, always
Yeah.
important. Um, what were some of those early gig experiences for you like when you were first out there and performing your early songs live?
Do you know it's not something I had ever pictured myself doing. When I say like I
Right.
had the worst stage fright, I still get stage fright that makes me sick. Like
Okay.
I find it terrifying to be on stage. I've always have. It's always, I used to not sleep before gigs. I'd be so nervous. Even gigs where I'd be playing to like three people, I would just be sweating the night before thinking about, oh my God, I'm going to have to go on stage and remember all the words. And speaking to the crowd is always very difficult. I found, interacting with people that's something I've come to, like, that's something that's been learned. That was never something that was,
Mm.
because I find a lot of musicians love playing live and they find that it's a really good way to connect. And that's something I've come to learn. But when I was first starting out, it was terrifying. I would avoid it at all costs. When I did play, I found it overwhelming because I thought I used to have like 20 people on stage with me just so I could like hide behind everyone else.
Oh,
And
bless.
it was like, it's definitely, that's been a long road. But part of like discovering my love for live music has actually been starting to design my own sets and put together my own shows and music, like be my own musical director. I had like some guidance early on from a musical director who helped me put my show together, and then since then I've just been doing it myself, and it helps me enjoy what I'm doing live. I
Mm.
don't know why, because it feels like it's a real passion project at this point. Like it's something that I've really spent time putting together and making transitions and programming like the backing tracks, and I've even started to delve into like live lighting and stuff. That's like my
Ha!
newest
Geeking out.
hyperfixation. I bought these lights and this like DMX's box, and I'm gonna start like programming some live stuff, but some lights. But I don't know. It's like I found the scene was really, because it was so cool, and I just felt I had massive imposter syndrome. I was like, I don't belong here. I suck. And like I would play these gigs where I would get, you know, I would be like first on, and everyone knows how hard that is anyway, trying to win over a crowd. And I think now I'm at the point where I don't try and win over crowds now. I just play the music. I try and enjoy it. I don't try too hard, even though I do still get like painfully nervous. Um, but yeah, the live like side of music is so, to me, it's such a different entity to the rest, the writing and the creative process and like putting the tracks together. So that's been definitely a long time coming, the live aspect of stuff.
That's really interesting to hear, especially kind of how deeply entrenched you are in the process of making your own shows. Maybe that's part of why you're enjoying it so much, because you know the thought that you've put into creating the vision and bringing it all to life.
Yeah, definitely.
That's really cool to hear. Um, and yeah, I'm sure you mentioned imposter syndrome there as well. I'm sure that's something a whole bunch of people can relate to.
Yeah.
Um, and also getting some advice from an art director earlier on. I was wondering if you could share any of those learnings from really early on that people that are watching this and tuning in might be able to kind of, take some guidance from.
Definitely. I think the first thing to remember is a process. Like I'm a person who often likes to be at the finish line straight away, and I get really frustrated and really like
Same.
it can be, you kind of want everything to be perfect, and you know in a real world it takes a lot of time to develop what sound you want on stage, how many people you want in the band, like in terms of your live setup, do you want track, like do you have a sound engineer, how complicated is your setup. I started out doing everything live, completely no backing tracks, no click, no nothing, just literally like me stood on a guitar with a band. And to be honest, they sounded like Pixey covers. I remember when Katie, my synth player, first joined the band, she was like, "It's great, but it sounds like you're doing a karaoke version of your own tracks." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's really good." But
Yeah.
yeah, but it was like the advice that I needed. And then as I started to sort of generate money from, I guess, like syncs and stuff with my music, I then put that back into the live setup. So that's when I spoke to, his name's Fraser McCall. He's he's an MD and musical director, and he helped me set up like a backing track, a click that could go to the drummer's ears. Just things that kind of just bring it to the next level up. And I honestly think there's no shame in using backing track. I think it's, most of your favorite artists probably do it live, unless they're a different style of band. But I find like it just embolsters when you play. I think it can help, especially when you, with my particular sound, like it's a bit of a wall of sound, and you can't really get that just with stripped back guitars and a drum kit with nothing else. So if you do generate any money from like syncs or grants, are a great way to get, like getting a live grant as well. That really helped. I got like a female, is it Women in Music for Liverpool from the PRS. I definitely suggest applying for grants, because that helped me be able to buy like an interface, for example. So I got this Claret 8 Pre, and that's where my backing track comes out of. And that's where the click also, we use a SPD as MIDI, and that triggers the backing tracks on my computer, and then the computer sends click to the drummer's ears, and then the computer sends the track out front. So it's just things like that, I would say, if you are wanting to sort of take your live set to the next level, I'd definitely say just things like that. If you want, just keeping in time, having like transitions, but still like playing live, singing live. And then the next thing I would say is taking the time to either write a really good tech spec, or investing in a sound engineer who knows your tracks. That really changed the game for me, because I'd always relied on house techs who, don't get me wrong, know how to do their jobs. Like they're brilliant. But when you want to start like putting your show out there and having your sound relayed to the wider world in different venues, you kind of want someone who knows how you want it to sound. I would often find they would pull the backing tracks and all the vocals down, which was incredibly stressful, because I'd get on stage and then it would sound like Pixey karaoke again, which is never really the vibe. So, and since I've got like in my own sound engineer who comes with me, she's amazing. She's called Lottie. She's fantastic. I've just noticed the shows have become so much more enjoyable for the audience, because they're getting what I am like intending for them to hear. And then it's more enjoyable for the band, because we know what to expect every time as well. Because you turn up and you'd be like, oh my gosh. Like, I remember one time they didn't mic up our piccolo snare, so the drummer was playing the piccolo snare and it just wasn't coming through. So, it's things like that, and nothing ever goes the way you think it's going to go. Like even when you've got like everything and you think you've got everything down, you can turn up and something won't work. I did a gig the other day where I had just had nothing in my ears other than my vocal and a little bit of track, and I was really panicking because I couldn't hear anything. But if you've been playing for a long time, then you sort of know the tracks, so it's not too bad. But nothing ever goes to plan, and I've played some really important gigs that went wrong. It's more rare than common to have a gig that goes seamless, like completely flawlessly. I can only think of like 2. I can count on one hand how many like gigs I've had that have just gone completely
that have been flawless.
Yeah, I mean, even when we played Maid of Vale the other day, I mean, this was nothing to do with the gig, but our van wheel just came off. Like when we were,
oh my god,
when we were arriving, and we were like, okay, like things always break and go wrong, but as long as you're enjoying it when you're playing, that's the main thing.
No, that's lots of great advice in there. I was wondering a little bit about how you built your career from Liverpool and then making that next step up in your live show to then growing your profile across the UK and more wider, like out internationally.
Yeah,
So yeah, if you tell us a bit about that story, and again, any advice that you've received along the way that would be really sick for everyone to kind of hear.
definitely. Oh, yeah, definitely. So I think like when I first started, I mean, we were talking about imposter syndrome before. Like it took me a
Mm.
long time to sort of, to be honest, I'm not even sure. Even now, I was on the train this morning thinking about it, and I was thinking I'm still sometimes don't really believe that I can sort of, or that not that I don't deserve it, but I always feel like it's never from hard work, which actually I have worked like incredibly, incredibly hard, and built a lot of the stuff from the ground up myself.
Yeah.
Like for example, like the production of the tracks, writing, recording, and producing the tracks. That was the starting point, and then as you sort of take the next step for live, or you take the next step, and then you're playing abroad and things like that, it always presents new challenges. And if you're not, I'm on an indie label. It's as amazing as it is, like it's not a major, so it's
Hmm.
like you have to do a lot of stuff and be creative and think outside the box, especially when it comes to like expenses and money and things like that. Like you've
It's
always got to
financial
be thinking.
constraints.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
financial constraints is like one of the biggest things that can hold artists back. It can. I find the music industry can be quite gentrified. I was very lucky that I had like a trial version of Ableton, and with the money I earned from the music, I put it back into the music. But even just having a laptop to start with, I got a laptop free from my uni because I'm really dyslexic and dyspraxic. So I got like a free
Mm-hmm.
laptop. I didn't do any uni work on it. I just downloaded Ableton Lite and then started producing on that. And I
Love
got like
that.
a really cheap fake Epiphone off Amazon and just started looping beats and started looping stuff. And that's where it started. And then when I started to grow out of Liverpool, I would say the next step after that was like when I got signed, because that then
Mhm.
gave me the contacts and the platform to sort of reach places that I hadn't had the chance to before. And I'm not saying, I don't think everyone needs to be signed. I actually think you can create, especially with TikTok now. TikTok wasn't really massive when I got signed. I mean, it was just starting to get big.
Mm.
I certainly wasn't using it or anything like that. Um, so yeah, I would say like that sort of early on part, like you can generate your own hype. Like that's really important. Like don't feel like you need to have everything figured out. Just if you're taking the initiative to start writing and producing, it's because you love the craft and you have stuff that needs to get out your head. So that's the best place to start. And then I would say utilizing BBC Introduce, and that was really important because actually I don't think I would be here without it. And I'm not just saying that because
We'll get to introducing. You can give us a huge shout out and tell everybody how incredible it is. Um,
But yeah, it was those two things, those pillars of like just reaching out to other people, making a bit of noise. Like the first track that I put out, well, other than the really rough like demo that I'd put. In fact, I only wrote this song. Sorry, let me start again. So I wrote this song. I can't remember what it was called. I think it was called like Supersonic Love or something, and I put it on BBC Introduced in Merseyside and Lancashire, and it got play on Lancashire, and then they invited me in for an interview, and they were like, "What other songs do you have?" And I was like, "I've actually got none." So I wrote this song called Young, and I finished it, and I sent it to Merseyside, I sent it to Lancs, and then that then got Tune of the Week on Radio 1, which is just crazy because it was like a first demo of mine. And then from that went on to the UK viral top 50 on Spotify, like back in 2016 or something.
yeah.
And then from but that was the hype. And then certain record labels were like biting and stuff, getting involved. But to be honest, I found the first record label that I signed to. They were a Liverpool-based one. They're good now, but it was very early days, and I wasn't really sure who I was or what I wanted. I was so early on. I actually think that it was all a bit too much, and then I ended up quitting because I felt really overwhelmed, and I was having a lot of stuff going on in my personal life as well. And then I think, well, then I got a guy who'd been into music from, I think it was Universal Publishing, back from the days of when it got on Radio 1.
Mhm.
He reached out to me, and he then became my manager and was like, here we go, get you in some sessions. I believe in you. This is like, we can do this. And then coronavirus happened, and I was like, no. But
Yeah.
that was actually the making of me, though, because I actually ended up producing it myself and then sending it to a guy who's called James Dring, and he's an amazing producer. He did engineering and I think some production on Demon Days.
Oh
Pretty
wow.
sure he's Damon Albarn's cousin. It's just pretty mad. But I was so nervous. I loved the music that he worked on, and that was where it started. And we just started like speaking remotely, and I sent him demos, and he'd send me back ad prod, and he was a mentor and like helping me get my tracks together, and how even like simple as bouncing stems, I'd never done anything like that before. And then and that's how it sort of built. And then and now it's like people listen in even in Europe and all over the world. It's sometimes I have a look on my Spotify artists, and it's crazy, to be fair. And I'm not even considered like huge. This is just like even for a up and coming artist, but it's really
Yeah,
exciting.
love that. So yeah, I think you've touched on so many really important things there, especially the importance of mentors. That's something
Yeah,
that I hammer home to artists all the time. It's like just always ask for the coffee, always ask for the help,
yeah,
because you don't know where it will lead. Yeah, it's really
100%.
cool. You mentioned Chess Club and signing to Chess Club. Literally one of my favourite indie labels of all time. Been like an
Honestly.
OG day one fan since 2007. Um, yeah, I was there from day one. I was wondering what sort of things you were looking for and looking out for when you were talking to. You mentioned finding your manager, finding Chess Club. Like, yeah, what when you were starting to build the team around you, what sort of traits were you looking for in the people and starting those conversations, and how was that for you?
Yeah, I find this really interesting because when I look at other artists, I always think, oh, they've got it so figured out. Like, I bet they're really like strong, self assured, confident people who know exactly like they'll like spot a wrath, like they'll know if someone's doing something bad. But honestly, like I know so many artists, including myself, who've gone through bad deals, bad managers. It's very hard to spot, I think, people who don't have your best interests at heart, but you'll often get a good feeling when you know they do. My first manager gave me a lot of like great opportunities that I would never, I wouldn't be signed to Chess Club, for example, if it wasn't for that connection. Um, but at the same time, like also left right before a big project. So it kind of felt, it's hard to know. I've had real disappointments. Managers, my very, very, very first manager, like if you can call him that, he left kind of in a like in bad taste, which sucked because I'm really not like a very difficult person to work with as long as I feel respected, and someone who
Mm-hmm.
doesn't kill the energy of your project as well. That's really important. I found sometimes you can have people who just kill your energy, and you know like you'll send like a really something you're really excited about, or you'll have a really big achievement and they'll just like send a thumbs up and you're like okay or like
There's the
cool.
excitement.
Yeah, but like you know I tend to find like as long you have to be quite self assured. Like I can tend to be a bit indecisive sometimes because it's hard. There's no book of like what you should do. There's no guidelines, especially when you're signing contracts. You got to have people around you who have your best interests at heart and they will protect your best interests. You will often know like pretty soon after. Like you'll get the vibe if someone's disinterested or if someone's like if somebody maybe has a odd intention, you know what I mean? And it does
Mm-hmm.
happen. It does happen. It's happened to me. It's happened to other people that I know as well. Um, but what I would say is reaching out to other artists and asking them for advice and experience is so important because they'll have their own experiences. Reaching out to bigger artists as well, that's been a really cool thing. Like people that I used to listen to now, like chatting away, or like they said that they like the music and stuff. But asking them for advice or reaching out to them is really important. Having a little network of just people who you feel like you can trust. And I've had
Yeah.
other artists reach out to me and like tell me about their situations with like majors and stuff that makes you just sends shivers down your spine. Like, there's some deals that happen that seem almost, from what I've seen, like they almost seem criminal, but they're not. Taking advantage of young artists who don't know what they're signing.
Yeah.
If I find being on an indie is the most refreshing, and also like it's very freeing because they do have your best interests at heart because they've not got 1,000 different artists to juggle. They're
Yeah.
focusing on you. And you know what, like even in the end, like the most important thing is the creative process. Like if they support your vision and they're not telling you to be something else, or they're not throwing a load of money at it and hoping that something will blow up on TikTok, the most important thing is like the creative process and building you as an artist, and that takes time. Like you can't just do that overnight. So that's what's been amazing about Chess Club, because they picked me up very, very early on. But I had already had a bit of like I'd already released my first EP, which I ended up self-releasing. I didn't, I'd only just got a manager. It was felt very like I had a sort of second chance. But yeah, I was persistent as well. And like I always knew what I wanted. And at the moment, production and writing is like my career, which I'm so privileged to have. But it's taken like 7 years to get to this point, which it's not a short amount of time. But having an indie label like and a manager, now I have got managers who I feel are in a place where they actually are excited about the music, and and they have input in the project,
Yeah.
and they give me advice when I need it, and help me with things that I'm not. I'm so ADHD, I forget everything, and I'm very discombobulated most of the time. But they help ground me a bit more. So yeah, it's hard. I would say it's hard, and you probably will come across people who don't have good intentions. But just asking the right questions, I think,
Mm-hmm.
is the most important thing to sort of to know what you're looking for in a person.
Yeah. That's yeah. Great, that advice. Absolutely love it. You've talked about songwriting and production, kind of been your focus as a career now. Can you walk us through your songwriting process and what are some of the most important elements of songwriting for you personally?
Yeah, I don't know how many people listen to my music, or whether it's something that you're planning to listen to after. But I love taking a lot. Like I love making samples, or I love sampling or recreating samples, chopping up samples. Like I think being inspired by other music actually is probably my number one place where I start. Whenever I've got writer's block, I just stop writing and I just listen to music. And often you'll hear something in the shop over the speakers, and it'll be like a little melody or something, and then you'll be like, oh, that's cool, and then that will trigger a whole new idea, and then I'll go home and sort of sit. And that's usually how really, really good ideas come about, is from like being inspired by other music. And again, there's no shame in that. People are so weird about like this idea of originality, where they're like everything must be completely original, and it's just impossible. Like everything is recycled from, like I sampled it was probably my most overt, like brave sample, but I sampled Len. Well, actually, no.
Yeah.
It was a song called Andrea True. It was called More, More, More by Andrea True Connection, and then Len sampled that back in the 90s, and then or early 2000s, and then I sampled that, and I found like a lot of people were quite triggered, like, does she not have any, originality? And then they'll be like, Len, this is Len. Are you paying royalties to Len? I'm like, they sampled that. It's like a song from 1976. Like
Yeah.
everybody is always taken from you know, different parts of music, different eras of music. I mean, most of like my favorite artists sample, or even or interpolate. I think it's amazing. I think it can create some really exciting ideas, and just strong songwriting. I just love like good hooks and really good production and a good mix. But I usually start like really rough and quick, so I'll just get that little idea, or start by throwing even just on Splice. Like there's loads of stuff that you can riff from, just throwing it in Ableton and just writing around it. I mean, sometimes it's literally the worst thing I've ever heard in my life. I've never let it see the light of day. But you often have to get through those like worse songs to then find something really good. And I tend to get
Yeah.
on like these little waves of creativity where I kind of make a few songs that kind of are in the same vein. You can really hear that on my album. Like there's certain songs that were written when I was like in the psychedelic phase. I was listening to loads
Mm-hmm.
of like King Giz, and then there was more other songs where I was listening to loads of pop, which like big MGMT tracks. I love just taking different like angles of sonic I don't know, like flavors and just throwing them
Yeah.
all in there. But yeah, I'll tend to put something in Ableton, just write around it, and then I'll often just do the instrumental first, then go around, drive my car, listen to it a bit, go for a walk, listen to the instrumentals, and then I'll often like something will just come. Like often when I'm not really actively thinking about it, when I'm looking at other stuff or doing other stuff, that's when like and melody will come. And I find that the hardest bit, to be honest. I've always found that quite tricky, but when it comes, it like usually flows quite nicely. But yeah, and then I just clean up the production, do a quick mix, throw a mastering plugin on it, and then send it to the ethos and see what people think.
People think. But yeah, thank you for that insight. It's really interesting, um, especially with the lyrics and stuff. Because I always find I'm one of those people where the lyrics always mean so much to me. Like I connect with the words, and obviously, like having a killer hook or like a banging melody to carry it is kind of like the cherry on top.
Yeah,
So it's really interesting to hear that with you, it's melody first, and the actual words themselves are
yeah, yeah,
kind of a bit tougher. Because I always
yeah.
find like the subject matter of your songs is always like it just ranges so much from just like out and out having a good time, it's pure escapism, let loose, right through to kind of touching on your anxiety and kind of mental health issues and topics
Yeah,
and how you deal with that. So yeah, just to hear that it's kind of as you're driving around or when you're focusing on other things that's not writing, that's kind of where the words come from. Is yeah, I love that.
yeah.
It's really cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I think like with it's funny because you're so right. I tend to be on like two ends of the spectrum with like with writing. Like, when you're writing songs that like I like to write songs that make me feel good and happy, and especially early on in my career when I'd had so much like trauma and a lot of sickness and ill health. Well, same thing, but you know what I mean. Like I wasn't doing very well physically, which has a huge impact on your mental health. And I always find that like a lot of musicians do take themselves like quite seriously, which is fine if you want to do that. Like I know quite a few people who are like that, but I just always found it quite performative, and I just think I wanted to do something that didn't feel like it was taking itself too seriously. And then I got to a point where I'd done so much of that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm having an existential crisis, and now I need to write about it. But I'm like so used to writing all these upbeat. But there's
Yeah,
usually like an undertone of like cynicism, or I don't know, like there's always usually a threat underneath those happy songs if you do listen to it closely. But like the newer ones, I would say, like Bring Back the Beat is literally just a song to sound good and big, and I love that kind of like big like 90s horns. Like I always wanted to do something like that, so that just ticked that box. But that's probably the most carefree song I've ever written. But all the others often do have like I'm always thinking about stuff, and because of the sickness, like I know I talk about it a lot, and I've talked about it in interviews before, but it really is like so defining in my life because I actually thought I was going to die. So like now I kind of live my life like not in fear of it, but it does kind of I'm aware of it. It feels closer to home. So I do tend to take that with me when I'm writing or even performing and stuff. I find the mental and physical connection with music is it's quite all encompassing. It's
yeah,
like, and I like that because it gives me a distraction, and I don't think about like what happened or what might happen. I just tend to try and it's kind of like meditating, really, like production and writing. It's probably the only time I feel completely calm, which is unless I'm like having a really sad moment. I'm like, I gotta write about this. I'm like hammering away my piano and writing something dreadful. But like, yeah, it's
but
definitely a
I guess
lived experience.
yeah, I think it's really important, and I think it's amazing that as your platform has continued to grow, you're still so vulnerable and open about your experiences with your sickness and with ill health and the effects it has on your mental health. Because I just think where the generation that are taking these conversations seriously and
Yeah,
we're doing better and working to support each other through these things. So I'm
Definitely. I
here
mean,
for it.
oh, honestly, I think it's so important because, you know, without your mental health, I feel like, and it's weird because I don't, it's something that is just so common. I just don't get why people are so weird about it. Like, to
It's
talk
strange,
about,
isn't
like,
it?
I know it
Yeah.
can be hard to talk about because obviously it's a very personal and lived experience for each person. It's
Mm-hmm.
different, but music's an incredible way to channel those emotions and those thoughts and those experiences as well. And actually, and it can make a huge difference in how people, you know, treat the conversation around it, which I think is so important. So
Yeah,
important.
I agree. Just move for me every time. Anytime I'm in a funk, that's what I know it word for word. I love it. It's the escapism, it's the feel good, it's the like pleasure to be here and gratitude to be here that I get from that song every time. I think
That's
it's
exactly why it
amazing.
was written. Exactly.
There
That's all I
you
want when
go.
people listen to that. That's made my day.
Love it. um, let's go. We have to talk about BBC Introducing. Obviously,
Yeah.
you've already kind of name checked us a couple of times. This is genuinely my dream job. No, ever since I was four, all I've ever wanted to do is help and support new artists and under the radar artists and just really play a part in them building a career in music. And
Yeah.
your introducing journey has been incredible. It's kind of, yeah, shout out to Dave Monk, shout out to Introducing Lancashire.
Yeah.
You've had, yeah, the key moments. You've had the Introducing Track of the Week on the Radio 1 playlist, which then put you on the radar of all the daytime DJs at Radio 1
Yeah.
and it started off those fan relationships. We've taken you to Reading and Leeds in
Yeah.
23 last year. We took you to Glastonbury this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just tell us a little bit about how important introducing support has been to your growth as an artist.
Well, yeah. First of all, I'd say that you're like an OG like fan. I remember when we were first put like I think in an email thread, and I was like, "Oh, Force is the best." Nobody got to me. Honestly, I'm not just saying that. You're the best. Honestly, it's amazing to have someone like you support the music. But yeah, without introducing, um, my career would not have had the catalyst that it needed to sort of get off the ground and get noticed and and give a platform not just for like female writers but like female producers who are early on in their career as well.
Yeah.
I think that was just that's so important. And if I urge anyone to do anything, it's get in touch, get the attention of your local, BBC Introducing. It's so important. They are championing artists, like under the radar artists who, can grow. They get the opportunity and the chance to grow and become your favorite artist who play, big stage. I think I was told a stat like 40% or something of the Reading and Leeds lineup, like headliners or something, or 30% had been on introducing stages and supported by bees introducing at the beginning of their careers. So it is possible.
It's 80% this
Is
year.
it 80?
Yeah.
Sick. Oh my
80%
god.
of the British artists on the introducing, 80% of British artists at Reading and Leeds this year all started introducing.
Amazing.
So,
Literally
yeah.
incredible. So there you go. Get in
There
touch with
you
bees introducing.
go. Love that. We've just had a little warning thing come up to say we've got a minute left. Debut album is
Yeah.
coming, $1 Million Baby. What do you want to achieve with this record?
I don't know. Do you know what? I've come to the point where I've sort of let it go, and like whatever it does, like the creative process has been the most life changing, important, work of my career so far. Like it's pushed me as a producer, as a songwriter, and I spent hours and hours and hours crafting this album. It's very deeply personal. Like it's a very very personal album for me, and I just. At this point, I'm just gonna let it go, and if it does something, it does something. If it doesn't, I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing. You know, the making of it is the most important thing. And however you guys or whoever listens to it wants to take it, that's your own experience, and that belongs to you now. So I'm giving it to the world.
Giving it to the world.
Exactly. So that's what I'd say about that.
Lovely. got a tour to support it in September as well. Do you want to give that a quick cheeky plug?
Yeah, I'm doing a tour that kicks off on the 24th of September. I think I'm doing London, Liverpool, and two other dates, I think. I should know this, I actually checked it before. But I think Newcastle and no, Birmingham. Oh, anyway, check on my Instagram, it kicks off on the 24th.
Yeah.
But but yeah, I mean, I do like I'm not. It's funny, like I'm not like known as like the biggest live artist, but I put so much work into my live shows, and it's had 7 years of crafting and honing in. So I promise you, be in for actually a really good show.
Honestly, it's a good time. It's a good time every time. I think if I come and see you in London, that will be my 6th or 7th time seeing you.
Really?
Yeah, everyone watching, I can guarantee Pixey shows are the one. It's a good time.
Oh, be great to see you.
Oh, it's been really lovely chatting properly and catching up properly. And
It's been amazing.
hopefully everyone watching has had a really nice time and you've learned a whole bunch of really valuable lessons, tips, tricks from Pixey. So yeah, thanks for watching, everyone.
Thanks.
Thumbs
Bye.
up. Yay.